let's talk today about school events. Now, school events are events that you do for a public school or private school, daycare, one of those kind of things, college. And basically, the category, encompasses you bringing inflatables for large groups of kids, usually under some form of government agency or municipality or something like that. So they're a little different from the average backyard customer in that they have certain stipulations and certain things that they have to do. Also, the units that you're using are going to be high volume units. They're not going to be something that you want to do like a single lane or something like that, because they're just going to move so many kids through there at one time. School events can sometimes require attendance, and they can also require certain setup times to coordinate with when the event is, or when the kids are going to be there, or when the parents are picking up, or when the bus schedule is, or when the school schedule is. There's tons of things that can fall into it. So they can be a little more demanding on you than say your average just backyard rental that you can drop it off that morning and pick it up that evening, and they have the party in between. School events will also have requirements that backyard events may or may not. They require you to submit a W-9, which means you're going to have a business license, and you're going to have your state, you know, tax ID number so that you pay your taxes and the whole nine yards if your state requires that. Also, whatever inspections your state may require or certifications. Also, whatever insurance you require. So you're going to have all your ducks in a row. And in fact, most schools will have these qualifications under a preferred vendor status that you have to get prior to you even trying to apply for them. So you probably need to address that even before you start going to talk to these schools. Make sure that you have all the qualifications that they require. Make sure that you want to have those kind of things, that you're investing into larger dual lane units and units that are more conducive for students, because some of those units won't actually translate over into backyard parties, or will very rarely translate over to backyard parties. If you're focusing on school events, you need to make sure that you do all of that first and then approach them. Now, who do you go to see once you do that? And again, there's a myriad of different people in different positions that you may need to see, from the principal to the assistant principal to the secretary to the parent teacher coordinator to just about the front desk clerk, just about anybody that they have assigned to be the one that's in charge of this. So you're going to have to make some kind of contact with them, and question them as to who you need to talk to and who you need to do what you need to do. I would put together a package beforehand. Again, make sure you're fitting all the criteria that they require, and then go ahead and put together a package that shows what you have, and how it's conducive towards their school and their things. And remember, elementary schools can go from age 5 all the way up to, you know, uh, 11 or 12. So that's a big difference in kids. And not to mention that if you get into middle school, now you're talking about kids that are preteens, and high schools are basically adults at this point. So there is a huge myriad of inflatables that will fit in that group, but won't, you know, cross over to the other groups. You literally don't want a 12-foot slide for high schoolers, and you don't want the big 24-foot slide for the little, kindergartners. It can be a problem. So you have to have kind of a myriad of items that will fit with it. And again, you got to make sure that you're meeting the insurance requirements, that you're meeting the attendance requirements. A lot of schools have a waiver restriction so that they will not waive their rights. So you may have to figure out a way to send home permission slips with parents, that so that the individual parent is waiving the rights. There's a ton of things that goes into schools, but again, it can be a big way to make good money, because once you reach all those qualifications, you're the guy that they keep going over to, and a year after year, you're going to be the one that supplies the same inflatables because they have a different group coming through every year. This is really, really good. And we've done a video on this where you can do events that you pick these certain items for and just kind of keep doing them year after year for these people. As long as the crowd is changing, the customer can be the same. I do quite a bit of schools, and again, I do all the way down to daycares and elementary schools, primary schools, middle schools, high schools, and even colleges. I do three colleges. So there is a ton of different things and a ton of different ways to do it. The good news is that your inflatables can play a really solid role in whatever they're doing. And if you show them that you're doing the kind of things that are going to bring attention to their event and make their event fun, they will be drawn to you. Now, I want to caution you to caution your customers. Your inflatables will not be center stage if they don't do some sort of advertising, if they don't do some sort of gathering before. If they rely on you and your inflatables to be the draw, they're going to be sadly mistaken, because what's going to happen is just because you put a water slide out there, it doesn't mean that the kids are ready for the water slide, or the college kids are ready for the water slide, or whatever is going on. You have to prep for these things. You have to give the people time to prepare for it and make a big event for it. So call it a carnival, call it a huge water day, call it an end of school celebration, whatever you want to do. But make sure you give your customers the information that they need to pass on to their parents, and let them know how their children are going to, or adults are going to, be able to benefit from using the inflatables at this event, and you will be kind of better suited for it. Now, there's some other things that I want to talk about is getting payments. Sometimes colleges, schools require that you do payments, 30, 60, 90-day payments through the central office, and they'll mail you a check. Sometimes they don't want to do the deposits because that requires them to make multiple payments and creates a nightmare for their booking, or their bookkeeper. The other thing is that some of them are tax exempt, so they want to provide you with a tax exempt form and want you to be able to take the taxes off. If they're doing multiple units, they expect a discount because they're doing several units. So there's a ton of things that you need to start thinking about before you get into a situation where you're doing one of these events, and you are able to answer these questions once they come up, because the last thing you want to do is seem like you're unprepared, or you're in a situation where you don't know what would be the best option for them. They are leaning on you as the expert. That being said, when you're doing the setup, let's make sure that you're setting up the units in such a way that they're safe. Watch for those cords in high traffic areas and the hoses. Watch for, the drainage of the water units, so that they're not draining on top of cords, or creating giant puddles that's going to destroy the football field and have the coach all upset. There is a lot of things that you need to keep in mind when you're doing these events. Also, you've got to leave room for them to move in and out. And if you're in a gym and you got 8 pieces, sometimes it can get very, very crowded when you're adding on top of that a group of children. So you need to make sure that that's taken care of. Power can be a huge issue, because what you have is a lot of units that are requiring a lot of energy in the same space. So you're trying to struggle to find these circuits that are not attached to each other, that are not going to, blow a circuit, or whatever they're going to do. Plus, at the same time, you got to run all these cords to it. And you don't want a situation where you're dropping a generator in some of these events, because they're either indoors or they're outdoors, and they're going for all day, and it may be a problem where you have to come back, or somebody's got to make sure that it's working, or the generator's not running out of gas, or millions of different problems are going on. But hey, this is what we're in the business for, is to solve these problems. And again, if you can be in a situation where you've prepped for these things ahead of time, you can be 100% on top of it and look like a superstar to your customers, because they're going to look to you and say, I'm so glad that you made this easy for us. I'm so glad that you made this enjoyable for the kids, and everything worked out perfect. We're going to use you next time. Matter of fact, I'm going to book you out 2 times for next year. Let's go ahead and put it on the books for now. Tons of customers all the time doing that. If you guys are going to do schools, make sure you do it right, because the last thing you want to do is do something wrong and then it turn around and bite you, because what they won't do is use you ever again. And you need to make sure that you're doing the installation correct, because you don't want your units hurting a kid in a group of kids, because I promise you that will get you in some deep water and on the front page or the front newscast, quicker than anything when something like that happens. So make sure you get them staked down, make sure that they understand all the rules, make sure that whoever's in charge of the kids is monitoring the safety side of it as well. Train them to do the job of a monitor. If you're not going to be there monitoring, someone has to take that responsibility, and they have to make those difficult calls of shutting things down. The last thing I want to talk to you, and I kind of hit on this before, if you stay with an event, you are not a babysitter. You can't talk to those kids like they're your kids, because they're not your kids. And a lot of parents will take an affront, especially if you hurt a kid's feelings or something like that, and they go home and they tell their parents, and then it's going to come back to bite you. What you need to do is make sure that you talk to a teacher or the principal or somebody, and let them know that you need a liaison, somebody that you can report bad behavior to stop the behavior. Now, if there's a safety issue, obviously you need to stop and deal with the safety issue. If it's a behavior issue, you need to turn that over to the school and let them handle it from there. There's never an instance where you want to be in a situation where you're going, confrontational on a child, because it can turn bad. They can also go confrontational on you, or call your bluff. And then what are you going to do? You don't need to be in that situation. That's not what you're there for. You're not there to correct behavior. You're there to make sure that things are safe. Look, I hope this inflatable uh, school event video helps you guys out. I hope that you rent a ton of them to these schools and make all the money that you can make off of them. I really enjoy the business. I enjoy you guys being in the business with me. We're in this together. There's no such thing as competition. If you guys would give me one favor, give me a like, give me a subscribe, tell all your friends about us. And if you need anything, as always, let us know. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next one.